Hello, everybody. Hello. This is Chris Barron for the 30th of September 2020. How are you guys? I hope you're good. I hope you're doing great. I hope you're having a great day. Today, we're gonna talk about several things. Let me share my screen so we can actually get started. First of all, I have to say that I'm really happy that I've seen some fantastic entries submitted. So I'm really happy about that. Make sure you check out the contest. It's actually right here in the contest section, in the contest channel. So I'm really happy that I've received some nice entries. Nothing all that fantastic, but promising stuff. So make sure you participate. It's really simple. It's really easy. You have a ton of photos. So please make sure that you check it out. The other thing, I've been really happy with how the last 4 or 5 days have gone. As you probably know, if you've tuned in recently, I've made loads of new photos for my healthy food business, and I've actually edited them in Photoshop, and I'm really happy with how they turned out. And why I'm so happy. The thing is, I'm really excited about my conversion rate. Now, if you've been following Master Web Design in Photoshop, you probably know that the conversion rate is basically the most important thing in any e-commerce store. The conversion rate is simply the number of users of the number of visitors that actually make a purchase. In general, if you have 2%, so 2 out of every 100 visitors that make a purchase, you should be happy. That's basically the norm. The absolute best websites in the world have around 4%, right? Now, I spent a whole lot of time doing all these photos that you see right here, and I edited them, and wrinkles and the labels were offset, various issues. I edited them in Photoshop, and I spent at least 40 hours working on all these things because I had about 1,200 photos in total or something like that. So this took a very long time, but I'm really happy to say that here's my conversion rate. 3%, 2% during the weekend, 2.9, 1.23, which is very standard Saturday, 282, 277, and finally 4.42. So it just goes to show that, all this time investing in product photography really pays. So this is something that you can do immediately. If you see any e-commerce store that's making any types of ads on Facebook, on Instagram, or whatever, if you see that their photos suck, please message them. You don't have to be fantastic at it. You don't have to make anything, incredible. As a reminder, I don't specialize in photography. That's not something I do. It's not something that I love. But still, just working in Camera Raw, it's not all that difficult. Increase contrast, increase vibrance. It's actually pretty easy to make to dramatically improve some product photos. So I urge you, if you see any type of business, any type of e-commerce store that doesn't have great product photos, please message them and tell them, hey, for the $400, I can improve all your product photos or whatever, if it's 20, 40, 50 products or whatever, that's a great way to make some cash. Just browse around, just open up Facebook, just scroll, and you're bound to see loads of ads from your region. And then it's really easy to just message that company and tell them, hey, I can really improve your photos for only whatever, again, $400, $600, $800, whatever it is, right? So that's something that you can really do to put some money in your bank account. The other thing that I'm really happy about, because again, I'm really happy even though I'm quite tired, is this. I've seen some beautiful entries submitted in the Discord channel, and this is something that doesn't seem all that fantastic. It doesn't seem, incredible. But again, this is the mark of a designer who has loads of potential. This shows me that this designer can earn at least $1,500 per month without any problems. If he really works sufficient hours, he can easily get $3,000, no problems whatsoever. Because you can see the color is great, the amount of contrast, the fonts, just about everything, it's really cohesive. And this is what I look like when, this is what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a designer to hire, for example, in my companies. This is why having a portfolio doesn't have to be, something that you spend, weeks and months on. Just having a few entries like this one is gonna do all the difference in the world. On the other hand, here's another one. This is probably someone that's new to the Discord server, and this particular designer probably did not see my web design courses. I'm not zoomed out, mind you. This is 100%. You can see here in the bottom left side. If we check the canvas size, this is 640 by 2000. And it's quite a shame. It's really a shame because when you design websites, without any course, without any formal education, without any type of structure, this is what happens, right? Let me actually zoom in so we can actually see what's going on. So this is quite a shame because you can see, things are left aligned. There is somewhat of a structure here, but overall it's just a mess. It's so disappointing to see someone who, this, I would bet this took at least 3 hours to make. And this really breaks my heart, when I see these two polar opposites, right? This guy is well on his way to become a professional designer and really make a living out of his designs. And this person is just wasting his time, his or her time, and it really breaks my heart because, if you just see mastered web design in Photoshop, at least 50% of the issues would just disappear. And what mastered web design is on sale for $10, $11, $15. It's incredible, you have all this information at your fingertips, yet you don't reach out and grab it. So that's really disappointing. Moving on to another design, I'd really like to review these two because these are my designs but reinterpreted. And I love when designers actually remake my own versions, my own designs. This is mod training. Again, the width unfortunately doesn't make any sense. I'm at 100% zoom level and I'm not really sure. I can't actually read this text. I would say this is about 7 pixels, maybe 8 pixels, which is blasphemy if you ask me. And it's quite a shame because this actual hero area may impress a lot of clients. I mean, believe it or not, most clients are really drawn to these colorful photos, and this can actually win design competitions. So it's really disappointing again to see that, if you just use the correct width, the correct size right here, left align it, this could have been way better. But overall, there is something to be learned from here. You can use this layout, and I would encourage you to use this layout, especially if your contest holder is a woman or if your contest holder is over 45. For whatever reason, this really works. This really speaks to them. I'm not really sure why. I won't speculate as to why that's the case, but it really works. Regarding videos, this is again exactly the way you should do it. Color overlay, about 40% opacity, maybe a bit less. This type of play button and the title here. This is exactly what you need to do. I know it seems really simple, really basic, but yeah, this is the way you should integrate videos in a project. What I would like to do though is to make it something like this, so I could have some bullet points right here. So, going not exactly full width, but going the full width of the active area is a bit risky because absolutely everything else is being pushed down. So that's something to be aware of. The rest pretty text heavy, but at least it's broken up into paragraphs. That's pretty good. The call to action is okay, but the fact that it's pixelated suggests that he probably stole this button. You can actually see right here, this is probably the rectangle that he stole. So that's a bit peculiar. That's a bit unusual to actually steal just a single button, because at the end of the day, it's just a rectangle. It takes what, 5 seconds to actually create one. So I find that a bit odd. This part right here, again, this is very modern. This is a great technique that you can absolutely steal and incorporate in your own layouts and in your own designs. For whatever reason, this works very well nowadays. This is considered modern. Having this overlay, this very powerful overlay, decent font in all caps. It really stands out, it really grabs your attention. And more than that, this by itself wouldn't be all that great, but showing this hover state, this really brings it together. And having these illustrations here makes this entire part really impressive. So even though we have some issues regarding sizing and the canvas width and whatnot, this is actually a pretty great design, and that's why I actually wanted to include it in this stream. And this part right here, again, pretty solid, pretty good. Basic mistakes, beginner mistakes, I would say. Not having .NET right here, not having a space right here. The gradient doesn't have the option ditter enabled. Just in case you're not sure what that is. So when you apply a gradient overlay, you have this option here called ditter. Now, ditter is exactly what you see right here. It basically prevents banding. And banding, I'm not really sure if you can see it through the screen recording. You can see some rectangles here, some vertical rectangles as the color changes. So it's not a smooth transition. You can actually see how this is broken up into individual rectangles. And that's banding. And if you want to prevent banding, you check that option called ditter. And again, that's right here in the gradient overlay. This is the option right here. So yeah, quite a shame that he didn't enable ditter. That's quite a basic mistake. The same thing right here, you can see that this has a custom line height, whereas this doesn't. So again, I'm not really sure why the design has these hit or miss things. Again, this is way too small for my taste, but this is perfectly sized up. So overall, glimpses of a great designer, but on the other hand, some very questionable things. So I'm not really sure why that's the case. Here's another one, and this immediately is way too cold for my taste. It's way too cold, and this has way too many execution mistakes. And let's take them one at a time. Immediately we can see that this is not left aligned. And there's no excuse for that. Even if you're working like this, there's still no excuse. Everything should be left aligned. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to center this. I agree that this forms a unit, but considering this is included in one section right here, again, I'm not really sure why you would make this mistake to just ignore everything else, to just focus on this part alone. Working like this all the way zoomed in and just arranging everything all by itself, not considering, the entire design, is a major mistake. And this in the main menu, it's something that I've struggled with in my first year of designing. It's something that I've struggled with. You can see here that we have a certain amount of space in between each item. It seems that he's consistent, right? And then he's not consistent. So that's quite disappointing, right? And you can see that something feels off. Nowadays, most menus, I would say about 80 to 90% of them take on this appearance. So just pure text, all caps, that's it. Nothing special about it. The secret, if it's so simple, if you have nothing to hide behind, if there aren't any bevels, any gradients, any rectangles, any underlines and whatnot, is to make sure that everything is spaced out correctly. You should probably remove something like this, so have all the menu items closer together, and you have to make sure that this particular button is again spaced out correctly. Basically, the amount of space that you have here must be mirrored here, and this is obviously not the case. You can see that this is closer to login versus all the other ones. So yeah, quite disappointing that this is such a basic mistake that basically ruins it. Because again, I'm insisting on this because, again, I think, looking at Facebook, at my group on Facebook, people think that, you have to create all these intricate designs with loads of, inner shadow and inner glow and bevel and emboss. And should I use soften? Should I use chisel hard? Should I use whatever and whatever, satin and whatnot? And the truth is, no, you actually just need one decent main menu. And again, it's something so basic, so simple. Platform, pricing, about, login, right? And then you make sure you enable on all caps. let's make it whatever, 16, let's see, something like that. Okay, then you count out the number of spaces, maybe a bit more, and then there you go. I've done this so many times in my web design courses that, you know, it's something that you should be able to do in your sleep, right? Then choose a decent color, a nice black, maybe something based on blue, something around this region. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but it's sufficient. It's decent. Let's go with something a bit more modern. Let's go with Poppins, for example. Let's see what width. I'm not gonna do the entire design, obviously, but just, you know, showing you how I would go about it. Let's actually hide this this menu right here, something like that. Let's actually hide that as well. Okay, just a bit more, just a bit more. Okay, there you go. So yeah, something like this, you know, a menu like this, just a bit more here. And again, if you want more space, just 1, 2, just count it out, right? Right, beautiful. And now let's actually create the button, whatever. The color really doesn't matter. I'm not gonna spend time on it. Let's make it rounded. Let's center it vertically. Okay, beautiful. And now let's actually create let's add the menu item, register, for example, right? I would not use another weight, so I wouldn't make it bold or anything like that. What I would do though is I'm gonna make this a bit wider so it has more breathing room. Let's go with something like that, so it really stands out, right? Because we have loads of space here. Actually, I think I'm actually gonna make it a bit bigger, something like this. Okay, and now again, let's round it out. Beautiful. Now let's center everything yet again. Beautiful. And obviously we would have to arrange it based on the guide. Now again, let's see what amount of space should we leave here. Now, first of all, we start with a measurement right here, and we have 47 pixels, and then we can measure it out, and we can see what's what, 47. And now just zoom out and see how it looks like. This is the first thing that you have to constantly do. You zoom out at 100% and you see how it looks like. And now let's just group everything together and see the initial one and mine, right? And again, look, there's little breathing room here, right? But now in my design, it looks a bit better, and I would actually move it just a bit, something like that, right? And now notice there's enough space right here, so this design element doesn't clash with the home item, which, by the way, should actually be a bit washed out. Something like this. Okay, something like this, whatever. And again, we have some breathing room here. And obviously the logo would have to go down a bit, and I would actually increase it in size. I would actually make it slightly bigger, something like that, right? So now all of a sudden, this is something that clients, you know, hands down, every client wants the logo huge. And why is that the case? Because they chose it, they approved it. And they, for whatever reason, clients have this idea in their minds that if the logo is bigger, that equates to branding. That means that for whatever reason, the visitor is going to remember their company, their website. Obviously, that's not the case. But by making it slightly larger, you're going to make him happy. And again, you know, this isn't oversized, this isn't huge. But yeah, this is a 1-2 punch that it's really so simple, so basic. So again, just look at this. This is the type of menu that you should be designing. There's nothing incredibly complicated about it. There's nothing, you know, that's revolutionary here, but it's nice and tight. It's clean. If you're a fan of stand-up, this is Jerry Seinfeld. Everything is trimmed down. There's no fat on it, as stand-up comedians say. The joke has the fewest amount of words that are needed, right? So there aren't any additional things there that are just fluff, filler material. It's nice and simple. There's nothing to hide behind, right? It's just a basic font, a decent blue, a washed out home, a clear call to action that's decently sized, and that's it, right? There's nothing to hide behind. This is the type of thing that you should be doing. And again, going back to this design, this is why I love it, right? Because look, there's nothing revolutionary here, but it works so well. The fact that these are not closer together makes so much sense, right? Because why would you bring them closer together? Remember, people have fat fingers. So making them, inadvertently touch a different button is going to annoy them. So by leaving that amount of empty space, sure, you would probably prefer to move this just a bit down, right? So you would probably appreciate something like this a bit more. But from a usability standpoint, the original version actually makes more sense. So it's these types of things that you should actually be focusing on. This is your job as a designer. It's not worrying about WordPress and HTML and CSS and PHP and whatever. It's about increasing conversion rates. It's about creating very solid designs based on nothing, because again, look, this is the perfect 2020/2021 menu. This is the type of thing that I would like you to see. And again, the difference between these two, it may not appear, as being groundbreaking, but every little bit helps, right? So I just improved the design, but whatever. Let's say I improved it by 7%, right? And you would say, okay, Chris, but 7%, that's nothing. Sure, but if I left align things, right? If I work on these calls to action, if I make them slightly bigger, if I use start trial, if I make it a bit bigger and this one a bit smaller, maybe choose a different color combination. If I work on this shadow, every little bit helps. Because this is actually one of the reasons as to why I don't actually spend time, on YouTube or on these streams actually fixing websites. Because again, early back in the day when I first started my YouTube channel, people were saying, okay, Chris, you're telling us this design sucks, that this is wrong, this is not correct and whatnot, but how about you fix it? Well, the problem is, if you actually want to fix a website, you're gonna spend at least 2 to 3 hours. That's the thing. It's actually easier and faster to actually create it from scratch than actually repairing it, right? Because everything is arranged in a certain way and you have to, see how everything is grouped together and whatnot, right? So this is why I never actually fix websites, because every 15 minutes, you increase it, you improve it by 5%, by 7%, by whatever, right? Let's continue on down and see what else here. Yeah, I would have to say that, again, this is another thing that really grinds my gears. This photo doesn't tell you anything. And I know it's so difficult to actually spend loads of time on Unsplash or FreePic or whatever to find a great photo, but this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't speak to anyone. This won't make you... You know what? Actually, let's back up. Have a look at this cup. What does this say? I mean, this is something that you should totally avoid. Man, it's 101. It's something so basic, so simple. Never ever show a design that features anything that may be, slightly controversial. For example, look, within a stream, right? If I say something about, for example, Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whatever, I'm gonna divide the audience. I'm gonna say something controversial. Some of you, 80%, 90% of you, may cheer me on, may say, okay, Chris, tell me more about how that guy sucks or how we need to vote him out or whatever. Sure, that makes sense, but there's a certain audience that's gonna be upset. Now, most people are gonna be fine with it, right? But what if your client is a 50-year-old woman? What if it's a grandma? What if it's a devout Christian? What if he's a Mormon or whatever, right? Very religious or whatever. What then? Why would you risk it? Why would you say something controversial? Because again, this is web design. And again, this is a design stream. Why would I say something political? Why would I stir something up? So again, choosing such a photo doesn't make any sense. And if you don't see it, because that's the thing, you may say, okay, Chris, he just didn't see it. He just focused on the monitor and he didn't see it. That's your job as a designer. Your job is to pay close attention to the fine details. So if you're not paying attention to the details, then what are you doing? Are you just selecting, colors and just mixing them together? It doesn't make sense. Now here's another thing. This is pretty cool. This is pretty nice, right? I mean, the icons are really detailed. They seem from the same pack. There is a slight color variation here that I'm not happy with. But the problem is this shape right here. This is so outdated. This is so not cool. This is something you should totally avoid. There's a reason why everybody uses circles and rectangles. Don't use complicated shapes. Don't use shapes that have loads of corners. These sharp angles really, again, where this improves the design by 5 to 7%, this ruins the design by 7 to 10%. It's something that, just feels outdated. And another thing, in combination with this specific shade, this is again not cool. This seems dated. This seems from 2012. And again, it's such a shame because you can see this specific color. This is actually great, right? This would be so much better, right? This would have been a marvelous improvement, significantly better. But then he chose something darker. Now the problem is, if you've been following my courses, you probably know that you should have an action color, right? Your calls to action have to be a bright, vivid color. Beautiful. It seems that he did that here. But the problem is, can you tell me, based on your experience with working with clients, whatever that may be, for 1 month, for 10 years, whatever, can you tell me how many people can actually spot the difference? How many clients can spot the difference between this blue and this blue? I'll tell you, under 10%. So again, I've participated in well over 350 design competitions. I've worked with clients from all over the place, from all over the planet. Young people, old people, whatever. Most of them simply don't have that attention to detail. They simply don't spot all these things that for us seem obvious. They seem, incredibly obvious. For them, that's not the case. So this is why we have to take on this approach where if it's similar, it's the same thing. If you want it to be different, then this blue, so again, this is one blue, then the second blue should be something like this. So dramatically different. 20% difference is not enough. 20% difference means they are the same. You need at least 50% difference. So again, it's really disappointing to see, choosing such an unfortunate color and combining it with this shape. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And now to further illustrate the problem, because again, I chose this design especially for this reason. We have one blue here, another blue here, and another one here. Now I understand that he probably wanted a different color for the call to action, sure, and he didn't realize that this is too similar. Okay, that makes sense. But then why use one color here and another one here? Why would you do that? And more importantly, why would you have 3 calls to action, 3 different calls to action? See pricing, start trial, and request a demo. Now listen, I know sometimes clients are difficult. And I just had a conversation with someone. This person had a baby, and the baby wakes up at 3 a.m. and he wants yogurt and he wants cartoons. And I was telling her, maybe you shouldn't give the baby cartoons and yogurt. Maybe you should tell him, hey, it's night. If it's night, we don't watch TV or whatever. And she said something that I'm sure, most parents would agree with. It's easier to just give him the yogurt and cartoons because it shuts him up. It makes him happy. I don't want to take on that battle and, trying to make him, understand that he shouldn't eat at night and we shouldn't watch cartoons at 3 a.m. It's easier because he doesn't cry as much. Just give him the cartoons and that's that. That's what designers do when clients have silly ideas. When clients want a picture of their wife in the hero area. When they want a picture of their kid in the hero area. And I'm not joking. I've had clients want stuff like this. Put a photo of my wife because I love my wife and, she's the face of the whatever. And just put it somewhere in the corner, right? It doesn't have to be huge, but maybe next to the menu or something like that, maybe in a corner or something. It doesn't make any sense because the business wasn't about her. She wasn't a personal coach or whatever, a trainer or whatever. So this is the type of thing where you have to stand up to your client and, 3 different calls to action. No, you have to put your foot down and say, hey, as a professional designer, as someone who does this for a living, if you don't want to use the term professional, as someone who does this for a living, I strongly suggest you not have 3 calls to action. Believe me, this will convert better. And, even if you want him to shut up, even if you want to shut him up and not cry and not argue about whatever, don't use very, similar colors yet different colors, if that makes sense, right? Moving on down, just a bit more here. Again, so disappointing, a subtle drop shadow would have made a whole lot of difference. Because this specific layout, this actually works really well. I've seen this layout on a bunch of websites, and it actually works really well. But without this subtle drop shadow, this doesn't work, right? Again, the footer, this is something that I do quite often. This is something that I constantly use in my designs, but this is too thick. So again, instead of 14 pixels, if you would have used 6 or maybe 8 or something like that, again, that's another 5 or 7% that improves the website. But a negative point here, banding here yet again, negative point here, and here, and in the header, all these add up. So unfortunately, these small little differences make, take you from 2 stars or rejected to 4 stars. So it's really something that if you work on it, if you really focus on all your mistakes, I mean, look, I'm sure that all of you in the chat know that this is wrong, that the copyright shouldn't be here. How is it possible that you miss this word right here and this part right here? This is your job. I would never, ever... Let me just finish on something. Whenever you send something, whether it's for the design competition, whether it's whatever, you have to triple check it. You export it from Photoshop and you drag it into your browser and you look at it like it's a complete website. You look at it from start to finish. You zoom in and you zoom out. You zoom out and you zoom in. You zoom out and you zoom in. You look at its balance. You look at everything from start to finish. You never actually finish the website and then email it directly. You never actually do that. So this right here, if you guys are wondering why most of my students, because I would say most of them, are not making any serious money, in design competitions, this is the reason. For silly mistakes like this one, right? Not arranging stuff, again, right here, this being too thick. It's actually doubled. I'm not really sure why. That's a secondary one right here. No shadow right here. It's so disappointing because you're so close. 30% more effort would give you 70% more results, more money, better star ratings, a better portfolio, more chances to get hired and whatnot. So please work on it. Work on those small little things because they're gonna make all the difference. Let's see if there are any questions, and then I'm gonna sign out. What was the shortcut? Yeah, it was actually Control Shift square bracket key. Let me finish by doing this. So if you want this, let's see, this button, if you want to move it at the bottom of the stack, you can obviously do it manually. Control left square bracket key, and it's gonna go down, or the right square bracket key. So this is 1 by 1. Or if you want it to go down in the last position, Control Shift left square bracket key, and boom, there we go. Obviously this is locked, so this is why it doesn't go underneath it. So this is something that I constantly use, Control Shift square bracket keys, to immediately reorganize my layers. Okay, that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. One last thing, I know I've been stuttering and my clarity hasn't been all that great in these couple of weeks actually, and that's because I've been hitting the gym like crazy. I've been working out like crazy to really shed some pounds to get into better shape, and it's really taxing. I'm not sleeping as much as I would as I would love to. At my oatmeal company, things are finally going in the right direction. So I'm actually really tired, and that it really takes a toll on my clarity and on my focus. Thank you for tuning in though, and I wouldn't do this if it wasn't a pleasure to actually talk with you guys and do some design reviews and whatnot. So even though I'm tired, I'm not doing this out of obligation or whatever. I do it because I love doing design reviews, doing anything, talking about design in general. So again, even though I'm a bit tired, I'm still really happy to do it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is Chris signing out. Have a good one. Bye.